for those of you who just joined. Yesterday, we had covered two sub-themes, internet governance and internet as a fundamental right. And we had a bunch of exciting sessions. Today, we'll be covering two sub-themes, emerging technologies and trust, security, and safety. Again, we have a bunch of interactive and activity-based sessions lined up for today. Today happens to be the last day of our annual forum. So we would like to start our second day with a second day inaugural keynote from Ms. Anna Roy, who's a senior advisor at NITI Aayog. Before I would like to start, I would like to give a brief introduction of ma'am. Ma'am is a 1992 batch officer of the Indian Economic Services. She has served as an officer on special duty to the finance minister and the finance secretary during 2009 and 2012. She's also served as joint secretary in the Department of Financial Services. At NITI Aayog, ma'am heads the frontier technologies and data management and analysis based verticals. In this role, ma'am has led teams which has brought out major reports like the National Strategy on AI, Blockchain, the India Strategy, Approach Paper on Eravat, Responsible AI, Principles and Enforcement Mechanisms, and a lot more. Ma'am also has the Women Entrepreneurship Platform at NITI Flagship, which works towards developing the entrepreneurial ecosystem for women in India. So thank you very much, ma'am, for joining in today. We are young people today, really look forward to your inputs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ihita. So, first of all, good morning, everybody. Lovely Sunday. I say it lovely Sunday because for first time, the air quality in Delhi, as per the phone, on the phone app, which you see, it has been a little lower than very poor. So I'm really in a good mood. Things seem to be on the uptick. So on this Sunday morning, I welcome all you young people, and I feel honored that I have been asked to address you all on this very important topic. Which confronts not only the young, but everybody, but more so the young, because you are the guys who are going to take this narrative forward, and you will be the kind of path leaders of the future. So thanks to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to address the young. My team in NITI Aayog, we hire people from outside on a contract basis. This is a special dispensation given to NITI Aayog. And I alone bring down the average age of my team. That should show that what a good team, young and motivated team I have. And many of them are in their late 20s and early 30s. So still in that age group where you have a lot of ideas and a lot of enthusiasm and much less cynicism than people of my age tend to have. So on today's topic, it is emerging. So it gives us a lot of opportunity to shape the narrative, to shape how we handle it. And I was lucky to be entrusted with dealing with this topic in NITI Aayog. I am an economist by background. So technology happened after the task was assigned to me sometime in 2016, actually post demonetization, when I was asked to help our CEO, Mr. Kant, in the digital payment drive, which NITI Aayog frontiered at that time. And what followed has been such an exciting journey with artificial intelligence, blockchain, drones, you name it, and we have been kind of in it in some form or the other. Now, what do we mean by, and before I get into my kind of remarks, Ihita, please make a mention when I'm kind of, near 5 minutes before my allotted time, so that I can wrap up quickly. Otherwise, I will, I may eat into the subsequent sessions. So what do we mean by emerging technology? Technology, you may think that emerging technology is something of an oxymoron, because technology is something which is always evolving, and that is the essence of technology. But what we mean by emerging and or frontier technology, as it is being referred interchangeably, is basically a bouquet of technology which have come to be known as IR4, a new set of technology which is digital in nature, but allows us to, which has really made inroads in our physical life. So cyber physical is something, which defines this emerging technology. And because digital does not have boundaries, because it is not confounded by physical parameters, the impact of this technology really goes beyond the physical challenges that we face. And this is what the fourth industrial revolution is, as against the previous three revolutions, where the digital space defines the how the physical phase performs. So this, while presents a lot of opportunities to us to overcome age-old problems of access, barriers of not having sufficient resources, etc. It also brings its own challenges of whether it is cyber security, whether it is privacy concerns, whether various other biases, prejudices which it brings in its way. So we need to be conscious of both the pluses as well as minuses of this technology. But I feel the biggest thing which we need to do at present, and where I think there is a lack of understanding and appreciation, is understanding the potential of the technology. For that, you need not know how codes work really. You have experts, so I do not get into that space. But even for people like me, bureaucrats who need to use this technology, it is very important to understand the potential, what could be its various uses, following which also what we need to be safeguarding against when we use this technology. So Niti Aayog, the data management and analytics vertical, which also deals with frontier technology, has been conscious of this, and this is what we have given our mission and vision statement. This defines this ecosystem, defines our mission and vision. We try to mainstream this technology in general governance debate. That has been our endeavor from the very beginning, and we also work towards sort of a capacity building, I would say, because it showcasing the potential, what all can it do, and what is the technology and what it is not. Because often what happens that, say in blockchain, if you're just digitizing some land records, you say we have a blockchain. Now blockchain does not mean digitizing some things. You need to have processes in place, you need to have various kind of systems in place to really leverage the value the blockchain technology offers. So that is what I mean, understanding the potential, going beyond the hype, and giving a detailed roadmap and a blueprint on how to leverage the technology. That has been our endeavor. The second thing we have tried to do is also identify, what are the governance challenges, because as we have said in one of our reports, government would stands to be the biggest adopter. And unless you adopt this technology, the development of the technology cannot take steam. And unlike previous technologies, the phase we are in today is really, startup led. You don't need to have a big company with size and scale to really get into development. Startups stand an equal opportunity to develop this technology, because sunk investments are not very high for this kind of technology, unlike the previous phases where sunk investment was very important. So size and scale did matter. So development is important, but startups have this problem about demand and about the cash flow. That is where the adoption becomes important, and we have argued that government could be the biggest adopter, and being the biggest adopter, government could also present the light at the end of the tunnel for the startups of our ecosystem. That okay, if we work for this phase, there is somebody or some systems or some practice through which transparently, our technology, whatever products we develop, can get adopt it. Now, if you do not understand the technology, if you do not understand how it, what is its potential, then adoption gets compromised. Especially public procurement, where transparency, accountability are so big, where you cannot have beyond a point, too many subjective variables. You have to, for posterity, your accountability becomes important, and how you came to a certain decision and you are not really comparing apples to oranges becomes important. And Swiss challenge kind of a thing really has not worked in India, and I don't think in coming times it can also. So having said that, we also work on how government as a lead adopter can have systems in place where it can adopt this technology in a manner which gives a fillip to our startup ecosystem to develop the technology and to see, okay, this is how it will get adopted in different spheres. So that is the second challenge. So for government, it becomes important to understand the potential and also understand the governance challenges, because it is at the ground level. It is really, this technology really affects the people. So understanding those governance challenges, we implement several pilot projects with local administration at district levels to understand what kind of problems there could be. So that is the implementation challenges also we highlight. And last but not the least is the ethical use of this technology. The technology is still evolving. There are various issues, and we have been using it past several years, and like I say, nothing helps adoption like providing transparency, demystifying the technology, explaining it to the layman in layman's language. And our layman language has also over time really kind of improved. So by layman, I don't think you really have to, draw figures to explain somebody, but not put the terms and condition in that font 8 where you agree and nobody really gets into that apps, what are the terms and conditions you are really signing off. So have clear terms and conditions, and in a manner that it is, can be absorbed by the user in a very, very easy manner, in a in a transparent, accountable manner, and also identifying the various risks which are associated, and giving and suggesting a way forward. We have argued that these risks can be addressed by leveraging technology itself, say bias. Now, there are several research being done, and very advanced models have also come out, which addresses the bias in a algorithm. So we feel that technology can give us solutions to overcome the various issues, ethical issues, which this technology poses. Do not throw the baby with the bathwater, and have systems in place to address that. So that is the third bucket in which we work. So in a nutshell, these are the three buckets in which we work in the DMA vertical in NITI Aayog. The other important thing that we do is to collaborate. I am a strong believer, and also the mandate of NITI Aayog, which has been given by the government, is that all wisdom does not reside within the government. We need to go out and work with the stakeholders, be it the academia, the industry, the civil society. So we actually have standing committees for all our topics, where we interact with them, and with in consultation with them, we identify the issues, and then also work forward for developing whatever the issue that we are trying to address. And since we do not restrict our interaction to any one set of people, we get a entire views of the entire spectrum. And then as the government, we do the balancing act, what needs to be done, what does not need to be done. In this exercise, we also float our research papers as discussion paper. Currently, one of the discussion papers which is there on the NITI website is on having a full stack digital bank. And 31st December is the last date, just to inform the audience. And we are seeking public comments on that paper. The paper itself was prepared in consultation with the stakeholders and also through interministerial consultations. So this is how we follow. I hope I have given a brief picture of how we work. And also, this should be a guidance to all of you in case you have any ideas, in case you have to work with us, do reach out to us. And we will be more than happy to co-author a piece or, work on any new idea. But then no shortcut to hard work. That is what I feel. And sometimes, unfortunately, in this age of Google, I find that young people, and I've seen it in my team, and I try to kind of, make them take the hard way, that there's no shortcut to, hard work. In my time, we did not have the Google to get us any answer to any problem. Today, I also Google. Anytime I do not understand a word or I do not understand the import of something, I just Google it. So I know it's such a useful tool. But let us not all our wisdom come out of Google. Let us read a lot. Let us write a lot. Because unless you write, you will not get the sense of, what needs to be done. What are your, weak points? Where do you need to sharpen? So since the audience is young, I thought, some kind of these points I will like to make, that let us not take shortcuts and do go the hard way. Now, coming to the issues per se, for longest time, and we continue to have this problem about access barrier. You have these remote areas where you cannot provide all the best health facilities or good schools. Now, the new technology, the emerging technology, as we call it, gives us that option. And I think for a country like India, this phase of technology can really be the, change maker and can really put us at a higher trajectory. So that is one aspect about access and providing resources. Say we are doing a diabetic retinopathy pilot project, implementing it in 2 districts of Punjab. So this is a technology which, based on the retinal images, can predict that whether there is a likelihood of somebody developing this, diabetic retinopathy problem, which really is related to your diabetes, etc. And sugar, which is called a silent killer, may not be detected for the longest period unless you go for a surgery or something. And we Indians are not in the business of getting regular checks. So this kind of technology can help, really transform our health sector. We have the National Health Authority. We have, who are working, doing such great job in kind of, streamlining the entire health ecosystem. So that is one part. Health education is another part. I need not go through the problems which education sector faces, especially in rural areas. And why rural areas? I live in Delhi, and our helpers kids, I see them. It's quite pathetic. And there are also, new tools which are coming up, EdTech tools, as we call them. They really give us a hope that learning outcomes can become the final goal rather than the rote kind of a thing which we, excel at. And the beauty is, it will not be restricted to any particular segment, though you will have companies who would, make it out of reach. But then that is the goal of the government, that they democratize the access to these tools to everybody. And then I come to the issue of public platform approach, which the government adopts. We saw what it did to digital payments, the UPI model. Similar model is being adopted in other sectors, whether it is the National Digital Health Mission or the education sector or the agri-tech, the technology, for the agriculture sector. The idea is aggregation of information, data, because data, as I'm sure all of you know, is the key input for developing this new technology. Secondly, also access to tools, etc. That also they are working. So democratizing access to these tools is what is important, and Ministry of Education has really made inroads there. Also, in health and all, a lot is being done where access is being given to these things, overcoming both language as well as other barriers. So that democratizing access is the other thing. Then providing infrastructure, so that we are not, in past, English was the defining thing. If you knew English, you could go here. If you were Indic language based, so this is the role we are playing, and we will be popularizing that platform. So that platform can be used by anybody, and use the, do coding using the Indic languages. So these are some of the things which we are trying to do. Compute is another thing. Availability of compute infrastructure is very important. And there we have come out with an... is there a problem?
Yes, ma'am. 2 more minutes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm through. So compute infrastructure is another problem, getting access. That is also, we have come out with a paper on how to provide access. So, I think I will end by saying that this technology helps us in bringing a development phase which is more broad-based, which is more democratic, where exclusivity can be removed, provided we play our game the right way. And that is where the ethical issues come. We have already come out with 2 reports on the principles of responsible AI and how those principles can be enforced. We are working on the 3rd part, where we are actually examining some use cases. So you have a day-long discussion. I hope some of these things will be kind of covered in your discussion. But I thought, coming from government, I should give you a landscape on how government is trying to approach this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. The points and all points that you mentioned were very, very insightful, and also for the motivation that we need to work hard and there's no shortcut. You've mentioned the various initiatives by NITI Aayog, which I'm sure all of us, I would request the organizing committee to share the link in the chat, so we can all have a look at the different types of initiatives and also the research papers that NITI Aayog is currently working on. Then we can also, you've also mentioned how it's important to understand technology before adoption. And we have our next session where we will be talking about the understanding all the emerging technologies such as DLT, AI, IoT. And then we'll also be talking about the various challenges, like you mentioned, of ethical and bias related. You also mentioned like you went into detail of the 3 buckets, and then you also spoke about how NITI Aayog and how important it is to collaborate with stakeholders when we're designing such strategies, and that is also something we strongly encourage